Hi, my name is Amit Fadnes, and I'm the co founder and principal consultant at Wingate Solutions. I have released multiple videos in the past regarding Microsoft 365 and Power Automate, SharePoint syntax. We are planning on releasing multiple videos on artificial intelligence, mainly with Power Automate or Azure AI and so forth. Most of our videos are based on our experience with our client requirements. So today, in the first part, we'll be discussing on how to capture various items from a PDF document. In the past videos, we have discussed on how to use SharePoint syntax to capture certain data from unstructured documents. But what if we have to capture multiple sections and store it in a SharePoint list? Again, this requirement came based on our one of our client, which is a law firm, and what they were interested in is capturing an entire section and breaking the different clauses and storing it in a SharePoint list. Based on the clauses which are stored in a SharePoint list, they were creating a standard response for those particular uh, plaintiff or to respond to the defendant or to the plaintiff. So, and basically the standard responses were based on what exactly is within that document. So what we are going to discuss today is how can we capture an entire section and then break those clauses and put it in SharePoint list. So let's get started with the demo. So since I couldn't get a legal document to show for this demo, what we are going to do is I have downloaded this Microsoft certification guide for exam PL100, which is the Power Platform App Maker exam. And we are basically what we are going to do is we are going to capture the title, which is exam PL 100 Microsoft Power Platform, blah, blah, blah. And in the past, as I've shown you in SharePoint syntax, this would have been an easy thing. But now we are going to use Power Automate and the AI Builder feature to capture this data. And then what we are going to do is we are going to capture the skills measured right from here all the way up to this thing. And we are going to store all of this thing in SharePoint list. Okay. So let's hop onto some of the SharePoint list we have, which I have already created. So the first one is the Microsoft certification, where we are going to store this title at the top, which is exam PL 100 Microsoft Power Platform and all the remaining text. Then we have the Microsoft certification main skill, which I'm calling basically this design business solutions 35-40%. And then I have the sub skill, which is basically create a high level design. So that will go in the title. And for the specifics, it's all these bullet points, which will go into that particular data, this particular column. Okay. And then I'm putting in the lookup, which is the Microsoft certification skill, which will point to this. Again, there is a Microsoft certification ID, which will point to the main list, which is Microsoft certification. Okay, so let's get started. So this is going to be, and of course, I have created this document library. And let me go ahead and delete this document library over here. Not the document library, the document. And once I go to the flow, let me go ahead and delete this so I can show you right from the beginning what we do. So the flow is an automated flow which starts when a file is uploaded to this document library. So the next step, what we need to do is we need to basically use a action which is under AI Builder, and the action is basically we are going to get all the text, which is the recognized text in an image or a PDF document. So we are going to use that. And in order, so now it asks me like what's the actual content which I'm going to process. So I'm going to call it as file content. Now, if you have watched my previous video about data operations, I have mentioned that basically when this document is read, it's actually bringing in all the pages. So if you look at this document again, there are around 8 pages in this document. Okay, so let's pull it up over here. And if you notice, if you look at the top, there are around 8 pages. So what happens with this thing is it's going to bring back the results, which is the 8 pages. So in order to, so we are going to first, what we are going to do is we are going to capture this information and then start from design business solutions and then go all the way down. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to capture the first page. Now, when the results come back, it comes in an array. So the first step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this as, I'm going to use the compose action, and I'm going to rename this as get first page. And over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an expression and type in first, and I'm going to get the first item from the results array. Okay, so once I do that, basically what it is going to do is it's going to get me the first page. And let me run this quickly. So let me go ahead and drop this document over here. And once it's uploaded, we are going to give it a few minutes to start running over here. It is still not running. And after a few refreshes, now you see that this has started running. So if I go into this particular document, and it already shows that it has succeeded. So if I open this particular compose, which we just created, you'll notice that it has created a JSON object. So what we are really interested in is the actual text. So if you see over here, if you look at this document, it's each line over here is going to be part of this text. So it says, so the lines is basically an array within this JSON object. And it has the first line, the second line, and so forth. So now what we are going to do is, let me just duplicate this tab. So we don't have to keep on dropping this document all the time. And I'm going to go ahead and edit this particular workflow. So once it comes back, the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's parse this JSON. Okay. So the output is going to be the get first page outputs. So I select that, and I'm going to just say parse JSON first page. So we know what we are doing over here. Now, if you go back and just expand this thing and get this JSON from here, and go back over here, and I'm going to generate it from the sample. So that's the easier way to generate the schema. So I click over here, click done, and now I have the schema for the JSON which is coming from this particular object. Okay, so once I'm done with that, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to, so this is the thing, if you look over here, there is a lines and it is an array, and then if you look at the entire object, it has the text which we are really interested in. So what we are going to do now is we are going to go to create a new step, and we are going to use the select data operation. Okay, so once I do this, now I have access to this JSON object. So I'm going to go and select lines from here. Okay, and the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an expression called item question mark, and I'm going to get the text object from there. Okay, click OK. So now I'm going to rename this get all text from first page. And let's go ahead and save this and go back over here, and I'm going to resubmit this, and let's see what information we get out of here. I think I clicked on resubmit. So now it ran and it was successful. Now if you see over here, if you look at the parse JSON, you'll see that, okay, it has got the output and all that stuff, and it's similar to what we had passed in over here. But now, if you look at the select, now it has only brought an array of all the text from this particular document. Okay, so now the next step, what we are going to do is we are basically going to, since, okay, we have all of this stuff, but we don't know really the index of each of those items. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a trick where I'm going to use another select data operation. And what I'm going to do is rename this and say insert index. Okay. And over here, I'm going to use a range and call it 0, comma, and I'm going to use the length of the array which was generated with our first thing. So get all text. So I'm going to select that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a 0 to whatever that length of that array was. Okay, so click OK. So once I'm done with that, the next step what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to map index, and I'm going to use an expression over here. And the expression is going to be just item. So what it does is it's basically for the first item, it is going to put 0 as the index, for the next item 1, and so forth. And then I'm going to put in a text, and over here I'm going to, so let's click on OK. So that item is inserted over there. And the next step over here is I'm going to again use basically what I'm going to do is, let me go ahead and copy something from here. I'm going to use this body, this thing, go back over here, and in the expression I'm going to paste that, and I'm going to say add item. So basically what it is sorry, not add item. So basically it is going to get the first index, second index, and so forth. So let's go ahead and paste it over there. Let's see if it got that. And now we have array which is an object. So let's see what it does now. So let's go ahead and save it. Let's wait for it. And now click on resubmit, click OK. And it will just take a second, or maybe 5 to 6 seconds, and it's done. So now if you expand this, you'll see that the input was basically a range, and now the output is this object array which index 0, the first line, and so forth. Now what the next step is going to be is, now we need to get the top up to here, right? So how do we do that? Basically what I'm going to do is, generally the Microsoft exam, either it starts with this exam or the audience profile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now filter this array. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a new step, and I'm going to use the filter array data operation. So I get that, and the output is going to be from the insert index. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the item and text. So that's what I'm going to filter on, and I'm going to click on OK. So let's make sure that it got the text. Sometimes it's weird that it doesn't capture everything. So if you see when I hover over it, it's showing the text. And I'm going to say starts with, and so it's either what is it? The exam was updated. So I'm just going to type in, let's do 2 lower just to make sure that we can check on the actual text. And so sometimes you have to click on it a couple of times to make it work. So 2 lower parentheses and starts with the exam was. So I'm just going to say the exam was updated, just to make sure that we have enough text over there. And then what I'm going to do is, now over here we cannot add the or clause, but there is another way what you can do. So we can basically, we are going to say the exam was updated or it starts with audience profile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on edit in advanced mode. And this is another thing which sometimes causes issues. It just doesn't work correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in Notepad, and we are going to start an expression with or, and I'm just going to copy this, put a comma, put it over here, and now this one changes to audience profile. Okay, so let's check if the spelling is correct. Audience profile. And now I'm going to copy this and put it in my text box over here. So something did not, oh, there it go. So just let's click on save. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this filter array for header. Okay. So, and then I'm going to have another parallel branch, which now we are going to basically get the skills. So starting at 35-40%, okay, on the same page, on the first page. So I'm going to call this as use another filter array, and over here again I'm going to use the output from the select insert index. So click on that, and over here I'm just going to copy this thing. Oh, I cannot do that. That's okay. So over here I'm going to say there's no need for 2 lower, so I'm going to say item and text, and I'm going to say this is going to ends with, so if you look over here, this ends with some kind of percentage and parenthesis. So I'm going to say ends with % and parenthesis complete. Okay, so this is, I'm going to rename this to filter array skills. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to first complete the header part and then get the skills part. So click on new step. Oh, sorry, not over here. I'm going to go over here, click on this and add an action. And the next one is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the index of the first element. Okay, so I'm going to say compose. I'm going to use that action, and I'm going to say rename this first occurrence. Okay, And I'm going to again use this first, and I'm going to use that over there. Okay, and let's go back over here and let's see if I can get the index element. Okay, so let's save this and let's test it on how far we have gone over here. So let's click on resubmit and let's see what it does. Might take a few more seconds and it's done. So now if you look over here on this for header, it found the audience profile first, so it just did that, and for some reason it should have picked the exam was, oh, this exam was updated. Sorry, I made a mistake over here. So let me go back to this notepad and see this exam was updated, and copy that, paste it over here, click on save. And let's go back and click on resubmit. And now if you look over here, it points to index of 2, and the first occurrence, it got us the index of 2. So now the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this. Sorry, I keep on clicking on that, but what I'm really interested in doing is add an action over here, and I'm going to do filter array, and I'm going to say header over here, and it's going to get it from the filter array header, and I'm going to say where the item and index is less than the value which we got in the first occurrence. Okay, so what it is going to do is it is going to just return back the first 2 items over here. Then I'm going to add a new step over here for and I'm going to use the join data operation, and it's going to be before we do that, I'm going to add one more action just for simplicity, and that's going to be select operation. This is going to be get header text, and this one is going to be body of that, and over here the item text click OK, and finally join this. I'm going to name as header, and from is going to be from the output of the header text, which is this, and I'm just going to put a space over here, so it will be joined, both those items in the array will be joined with a space. So let's save it, and now if you look at this thing and click on resubmit, and if you now look over here, For some reason, it did not pull up everything. So let's see what happened here. Oh, so the issue is that in the filter array header, I was pointing to this for a header, which was just those two items. Instead, I should have pointed to the insert index, which brings back everything. Okay, so sorry about that. I just fixed it. And now let's look at, click on save and run history and click on resubmit. And let's see what we get now. And if you look over here, now we have got the entire text for the header. This is what is going to go into the main Microsoft certification list. Then the next thing is over here. Now what we are going to do is we are going to start bringing in everything from this particular list downwards. So design, business solutions, all the way. Now I'm going to capture everything and then we'll filter out only up to this particular stuff. So in order to do that, on this first page, we have to go through and capture all of this stuff, right? So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to, so over here, if you see, we have found the index now technically for the skills over here. So what I'm going to do is, again, the same thing. I'm going to create a compose, and generally you can combine these steps, but for clarification, I'm just creating this separate steps. So I can click on compose and I'm going to say rename and first occurrence of skills. And over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a first expression, go back over here and body, and I'm going to put in the index. So if you hover over it there, make sure that it got the, okay, sometimes it does that. So let me go back and put in the index, update it. Now let's, for some reason, it doesn't like that. Okay, after a few more tries, now if you see over here, it has pulled up the index and everything. Okay, so the next step, what I'm going to do is, so I've got the index for this particular option. So I'm going to just say everything from down over here, I'm going to pull up all the data. So I'm again going to use add an action and say filter array. And the output is going to be the insert index. So use that. And over here, I'm going to use an expression for item question index. And is greater than, actually it should be greater than or equal to whatever we got the output over here. So that particular output. So I'm going to say rename this get skills after first occurrence. Okay. Now we have got that array. The issue is sometimes what happens is, because we have all these different pages we are going to loop through and all that stuff, the problem is that if you use like for each or do until, whatever you want to, you're basically adding that to another array and so forth, and then eventually you're going to split it up, and or basically then you're going to insert it into those SharePoint lists. So what I wanted to do is, in order for performance, I'm going to put it in a string variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable for so I'm going to call it initialize variable, and I'm going to call this entire skills string. Okay, it is going to be of the type string, and I'm going to put that in the header over here. And then, so we have got all the data after for all the skills. So again, similar to what we did for the header, we are going to add another action, and we are going to do the select and over here it's going to be everything from the get skills after first occurrence. And over here what we are going to do is change this to an expression for item text. Okay, so now it has got us all the text for the skills. So get text for skills. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to append that particular string over there. So what I'm going to do over here is click on add an action, and I'm going to call this as append to string variable, and the string variable is entire skills string. And I'm going to basically use the concat. Over here I'm going to say join, and then the join is going to be based on get text for skills, so all the text, and it is going to be joined by, so now I'm going to use some weird characters. So I'm going to just say this %0a, and that's the entire string, and I'm going to concat it. Actually, I don't need to use the concat, so let's do this. Okay, so we have created this join and put it over here, entire skill string. So rename this to save it, and let's see what we have got over here. Resubmit. It will take a few seconds, and it has ran. And if you go to this thing, now it has brought back everything separated by %0a. Okay, so what we are going to do now is, once this is done, now we have the first page, everything completed, we have got the header and all that stuff. So the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on new step. So both these actions, after these parallel actions are done, it comes to this one, and I'm going to initialize a variable, and I'm just going to call this index integer, and I'm going to start it with 1. And another step over here, another variable, and I'm going to this as count, integer, and in the expression I'm going to say length, and this time I'm going to use the results length. So if I scroll down, go to this thing, so how many pages do we have? So we have processed the first page. Now we are going to process everything after the second page. Okay, so I'm going to now click on this, rename, and I'm going to say initialize count. And now over here, I'm going to use the control, and we are going to use the do until, go with index is equal to count. And generally I try to set some limit over here because 60 items, but as you see, there are like around most probably 100 to 200 items over there because it's 8 pages. What is going to happen is if you use the do until, it's going to stop at 60 count. So I will set this to maybe 300. Okay, and a common thing which we tend to forget is incrementing this variable for index. So I'm going to say increment variable and rename index by 1 for page, and I'm going to increment it by 1. Then one of the steps what we are going to do now is we are going to basically get the compose, and what we are going to do is now I need to drop this underneath that, and I'm going to rename this to current page, and I'm going to use, so what I'm going to do is over here, I'm just going to go back over here and copy something. Oh, this is wrong. This needs to be length of results. So I'm going to copy this as well. Okay, and I'm going to go over here in the expression. I'm going to use that and the variable index. Click OK. So now if you see over here, it's going to get the current page. Okay, and now this process is similar to what we saw over here where we are getting, except now what we are going to do is, so I'll show you a few things and then I'll pause the video and then complete most of the workflow because I don't want you to see all the repetitive things. So this process is the same over here. So we go to this, and here is what I can do. I can just do copy to my clipboard, and over here I'm going to just add an action, my clipboard, use this, and what I'm going to do is expand this thing. Come on. Expand this, and instead of this output, I'm going to use the output of the current page. So output of the current page, let's hover it just for a second. Yep, and I'm going to rename this to, instead of first page, to current page. the next step also I'm going to just copy it from here. Which is this thing. Copy to clipboard and add an action. And I'm going to use that. So go back over here, delete this, and I'm going to use the lines from that one. So scroll down over here and use the lines. So if you hover over that, that's what it is looking for, the current page. And let me go back over here and I'm going to just make sure that this is correct. And get all text from current page. And then the last action is we are going to append it to the string variable and the entire and here is where I'm going to use concat, because if you remember when we did the first page, it ended without the breakpoint or the %0a. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a %0a comma join and go back over here, and we are going to join all the text which we got over here, comma with %0a, and that's about it. So click on OK. Let's make sure that it captured everything. So just hover over that. Okay, and I'm going to rename this to and what I'm going to do is on the new step, I'm just going to, for now, just so that we see what all was returned back, I'm going to just use the compose data operation, and I'm going to just display that particular string. Okay, click on save and click on resubmit, click OK. And this might now take a few more seconds because now it has running through the entire document. So let me pause and come back once this workflow is completely done. If you see over here, oh, actually ran pretty quick. So now if you see over here, it has captured almost all the information. So if you just copy this, go over here and paste it, and it has captured all of the data now. So now what we are going to do is, once this particular part is done, we are now going to go loop through. So first, the first step, what we are going to do is, let me delete this one, and I'm going to declare a variable for an as an array. So I'm going to call this as initialize variable, and over here I'm going to say entire skills array, and I'm going to call this as an array, and I'm going to use the split condition now, split, we are going to use this. And if you remember, we had that delimited as 0% A, and click OK. Let's make sure it has captured everything. So now I'm going to rename this as entire skills array. Click on save. And resubmit. And within a few seconds, it should come back with a success. It's processing this. And it ran successfully. So if you open this, now we have got the entire array of items. Okay, so now the next step, what we are going to do is we are going to just loop through this array, put it in the appropriate SharePoint list. So I'm going to show you the one which we have already created, which is the header over here, which is this join header, and I'll show you how easy it is to create the item, and then I'll loop through. I'll just code that, pause the video, code the entire thing, and then I'll explain how the whole thing works. So we create a new step over here and call this as create item, and we are going to basically do the conference demo, and the SharePoint list is going to be the actual topmost Microsoft certification. And in the title, what we are going to do is we are going to use the output from the header text, which is the join header. So we got the output over there, and that's now being stored into the SharePoint list. So if we save this thing, and once it is saved, let's resubmit this workflow. And just a few seconds, and this will be done. And it created this item. So let me go back and check on this one, refresh this. And after a couple of refreshes, now if you see over here, it is showing the actual header. So now let me pause this video and create the remaining steps, and then I'll come back and explain the whole thing. Okay, and I'm back. So now what we are going to do is, so I showed you up till now that how we can create Microsoft certification like on the main item. Now we are going to move on to create the sub items, so the main skills over here and then the sub skills over here with the specifics. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and created some variables over here, and I'm going to now just rename this to count. So what I did was we looked at how we created this entire string of all the skills, and then what we did was we split it into this entire skills array over here. So I've declared the index variable, I've set it back to 0, the count to the length of this array, and then I have this, I've declared some more variables. So I have the main topics array, which is basically going to be the main skills. So it will insert it over here. The main topic, just to keep a track of the current topic. The sub skill, which basically goes into this title. Sub skill specifics, which goes into this. And then what I'm doing is I'm creating the entire object for this, like a JSON object array for the skills and the specifics. So I've declared these variables, and now what I'm doing is I'm going through all this the entire skills array over here. So what I've done is I've changed this limit just to 110, because I know that this is going to be just around 100 items. And the first step, what I'm going to do is, and I'm looping from 0 to the total count which I have received in that entire skills array. So basically from design business solutions all the way till the end, I'm bringing back everything. Okay, so I've got that array and I'm going to loop through that. I'm getting the current item of the current text. And what I'm doing is I'm checking if that current output does not start with the following. So basically what I'm doing is if it comes up to here, the following table compares the previous and new study guides, it ends over there. That's about it. Okay, so everything before this and after that first design skills, design business solution, everything we are going to track. So if we have reached the end, then what I do is I just set the index to the count. So basically I want to terminate this do until loop. Sorry. So basically once we reach that table's beginning, it is going to stop this loop. And then I'm going to add that I'm going to compose a JSON object which has the main topic, subskills, and specifics, and then I'm going to add it to the subskill object array. If you're still looping through it, it will go to the yes clause, and what it does is in the yes clause, the first step what it is going to do is, if you notice over here, all the main topics or main skills will start with a capital letter, and even the sub skills also start with the capital letter, and the actual specifics are with small case. So what I'm doing over here is I'm checking if the first letter of the string of the current line, if it starts with uppercase, and it's not a dot, because what it does is when the entire object is read, all these dots are converted into one line, dot dot dot. It doesn't like show you this indented those dots as it is. So what I'm doing is if it doesn't start with dot, then it is going to move on to the next one. Actually, it needs to be does not start with. Okay, and then the next step is that so if that is true, then it goes over here and it checks if it is the main topic, because all our main topics do end with some percentage and a parenthesis sign. So I'm checking if it ends with percent and parenthesis, then it goes to this particular if condition. And then what I'm doing is, if so basically we have read into it and it reaches this particular item, then what it needs to do is it needs to add this last one into the subskill array. Okay, so I'm checking if the specifics were set. Then what it does is it basically generates that JSON object, it adds it to the subskill object array, and then it will nullify the subskill specifics, because we are appending everything to the subskill specific string. And if that condition is not true, then it doesn't do anything, but it will add that main topic to the main topics array and set the current topic to the main topic variable. Okay. If it doesn't end with percent and parenthesis, then we know that it is a subskill. So again, we are checking if the subskill is equal to the false sign, then go to the next one, which is over here, and it will basically, actually this needs to be, because we are just getting the first item, so it is always going to be dot. So anyway, so this one, we are again composing the subskill object and then adding it to the array, and then again we are the subskill specifics, we are nullifying it. And if it is not if there were no specifics, then what we do is we add we put that value into the subskill variable. Okay, once this particular stuff is done, so we have grabbed everything, what we do is it has looped through everything, it has got all the data and all that stuff. Then the next step, what we are doing is, as I showed you earlier, we are appending it or adding this to the Microsoft certification SharePoint list. And then I'm looping through the main items array to add it to the main skills SharePoint list. So I'm looping through that, and here is the create item. And what I'm doing over here is, if you expand this, I'm adding that current item to this particular main certification main skills to the title, and then I'm using the ID which was generated over here and appending it or putting it in this particular column. And then I go through that subskill object array. So if you remember, it was a JSON object. So what I'm doing is, on each of those subskill object array, I'm basically getting the current item. I parse that JSON, so it will give me the main topic, subskill topic, and the specifics. And then I'm creating the main skill in this main skill SharePoint list. And then once that is generated, I basically, so I'm getting the, so we have created the main skills over here. Then I'm getting the main skill ID. So once this main skill, we need to get the ID so we can put it into the subskill. So I'm getting the main skill ID over here. And then what is going to happen is this get items is also going to return an array. So I'm getting the first element, and then I'm parsing through the items which has been returned over here, and so I can get the ID column. Once I get, if you see, this is the SharePoint list, how it is being returned back. And once I do that, I basically create this subskill and put it in the subskill. Again, that's from the first JSON, which is this one. I get the subskill, so I put it over here in the subskill. Specifics is also from this particular JSON, so I put that specifics over here. And finally, the ID, which I have got from the SharePoint list, which is this particular list. So now let's run this, and it will take about 3 minutes because now it has to loop through all the items and then specify and put it into the SharePoint list. So I'm going to pause the video and then we'll see. And before I do that, I'm going to delete this so it creates a new item over here. Okay, so let me run this. I'll pause this for about 3 minutes and then it comes back and I'll show you what the results are. And I'm back now, and it just completed. So if you see over here, it ran successfully. It took all those steps. And now if we go back over here, refresh the screen. Generally, it takes a couple of refreshes, but now it's showing you that it has captured the title. If you go to this one, it is going to show you that it has captured the main skills. And finally, it has captured the subskills, the specifics, and so forth. So if you see over here, it has captured all the data. It is displaying it over here. And our workflow was successful. We captured everything from the PDF document, what we wanted to capture it, and displayed it on the SharePoint list. So what we have done is we took a sample PDF document, and this was just an example. In your organization, you might have different requirements. So I just showed you how you could use the AI builder recognize text from the PDF documents or an image and use it to capture all the data which is part of the document and put it into SharePoint list. In the next video, there was another requirement where we had to change this data or translate some of this data into specific languages. So in my next video, I'm going to show you how we can use the Translate AI Builder to change it into a language which you wanted to change on. Like I'm going to change it to Spanish and maybe to some other languages, Asian language or something. So that's all the video for today, and I'll come back with the next video, which is going to be the translation of specific text. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you.